Hey, it's Medium Jenny Lee. I'm here with the Woo Woo Book Review number 15. We're going to be talking about John Edward. Do you guys remember him from the show Crossing Over? If you are a young person, you might not even know who I'm talking about. We're going to talk about John Edward's book one last time. So, John Edward is a medium who had a TV show in the late 90s. I'm not sure the exact run of the show, the years of this that the show spanned, but this book is about his experiences becoming a medium, figuring out that he was a medium. This book came out in 1998, so that gives you a good idea that about the time frame, because I'm sure that, clearly he's already the host of Crossing Over. I don't remember what channel that came on. Was it the Sci-Fi Channel or something? My brain doesn't remember those details. At the time, other than Sylvia Browne being on the Montel Williams show, there wasn't any other medium type of shows on television. So, and I might be wrong about this, so you can correct me if you know different, but to my knowledge, he was the first to have his own syndicated television show that came on every week. And what he did was a gallery reading. So it's a big studio, television studio setup where he would go in and he would just read a gallery reading for the room. When it was on television, my mom and I used to watch it together all the time, and we loved it. We didn't want to miss an episode. So once again, this is the late 90s. I'm in the last years of high school at that time. So for me, I didn't know at all. It was going to be another 20 years before I figured out that I myself was a medium. So looking back on that time and watching this show and being really interested in it, and right now my whole head is really tingly, so there must be a lot of spirit stuff going on right now. To look back on that is kind of interesting and weird. I don't know when my mom purchased this book. She might have had this book from the 90s. She might have got it when it was fairly new. I didn't know that she had it. She's been trying to purge her stuff in her house, and so she's been going through books and whatnot, and she found this one. She passed it along to me just recently in the last couple of months, and it came up. I do a random I used to do it on paper, but I switched over to a wheel of names, which those of you who watch me on Twitch will not be surprised about that, because I love a wheel and I love a random picker of some sort. But I have a wheel of names for all the books that I own that I haven't read. So this one, even though I had just got it, just happened to come up on my wheel of names for my books to read. So I read it, and as you can see, it's pretty short. It's not very long. It's very dated because it's from the 1998. To give you a little bit of an update about John Edward, because I didn't know what happened to him after his show went off the air, and I kind of had forgot about him, to be honest. I hadn't thought about him in a really long time. So when this book appears in my hands from my mom, I'm like, oh, well, what happened to him? Well, he gets accused at some point in time of being a fraud. There was some journalist guy, I think it might have been from the New York Times, went to one of the tapings of his show and saw how much was being edited out of all of the wrong information that he was getting. Which, of course, I think most people know that when you're recording something for television, that they're going to manipulate all of it through editing to make it the most interesting, even if it's not the most accurate or true. So this journalist reports what he experienced at the taping of one of the shows, about how he was really grabbing and grasping and not getting accurate information, and then they edited it all together to make it seem like he was like really on it, which of course that's what they're gonna do. All TV shows do stuff like that. We know that from all of the ghost hunting shows that have come out over the last 20 years. And you know, I mean, I've heard personal stories of people that have been on television shows, and what they gave in their interview or whatever was completely different than what showed up on television, sometimes to make it sound like it was the complete opposite of what they were saying, or completely misconstrued information. So it's not surprising to me at all that this journalist experienced that. Now, for him to just assume from this one experience that John Edward was a fraud and that he wasn't really doing what he said he was doing, I think was not surprising, but also kind of harsh. I went to John Edward's website when I was reading this to see what the hell is he doing now, and he still works as a medium. You can get readings from him still. I don't, who knows if he's still as popular as he once was back in his heyday, but he's still a medium. He's still reading and he's still doing all that. So reading this book, after knowing that that's what happened to him, that he gets called out about being a fraud, reading this book, I have to say, from my understanding of mediumship, from my experience as a medium, from my interpretation of his journey into mediumship and his ability to connect to spirit and my psychic abilities as well, that he's the real deal. Like, I don't think that we have to question whether he was for real or not. I mean, skeptics are always going to question because they don't believe it. So that's not surprising at all, right? I did find it very strange, some of the ways that if you ever watched the television show, you'll know, like, he worked really fast. He talked really fast. He only gave certain information, certain types of information. So reading his way that he reads or read back then, I don't know if it's changed for him or not, was very interesting to me, because there was some differences in his experience versus my experience. His experience was that whatever the spirit was saying, he had to say out loud. Whatever was coming through, he had to say. And I think that's fine and dandy. But in the ethics of mediumship, sometimes I think that doesn't apply all the time, because sometimes you get a spirit who's not being nice, who wasn't a nice person in the living, and why would you let them come through and berate the living person? That's happened to me multiple times. So no, I didn't agree with that. And then for him, the only type of spirit contact, at least that he talks about in the book, and it might have changed over the years, but for his type of readings, the only type of things that would come through were specifically loved ones on the other side coming through to tell their loved ones that they were okay, to help them deal with their grief, to help them with something that was happening in their life. But that was it. Like, there was nothing else, which at some point when I was still early in my mediumship, I would have said, well, it's just evidential mediumship and that's what it's supposed to be, right? But over the course of my experience, I know that there's an endless amount of types of energy that we can connect with. But for him, it was just, that's it. You know, it's just evidential mediumship. It's just giving them the evidence so they know that they're talking to their loved one and getting messages that usually had to do with, hey, I'm okay. I love you. I'm here. You don't have to worry that you didn't make it to see me before I passed. You know, it's like that that's the majority of it. There is some really great stories in here about how spirits were helping different families. There's one in particular, and I won't give it all the way in case you want to read about it, but it had to do with medical procedure for a living person, and the spirit person came through, and John Edward just happened to be like a phlebotomist nurse or something. It was really interesting. So I would say for the most part, his experience as a medium is pretty different than mine. There was definitely some similarities and lots of things where I was like, yep, yeah. But a lot of things that were different. There was one thing in the book where I was like, oh, maybe I need to try that. There was one, and I should say it here out loud so I don't forget about it when I'm doing my own readings. Hopefully I'll remember. He was saying that when he would go to get a name or initial, sometimes when he would hear the sound of a letter, it didn't necessarily have to be that the name started with that letter. Sometimes it was like the main sound of the name. Like, I can't think of an example right now, but you know, like, let's just say there's like a hard R in the middle of the name. And that is coming through because it's part of the name. It's part of the main sound of the name, but it's not necessarily what the name starts with. And I was like, oh, I never thought about that before. I wonder if that's been happening to me. And that's one of the reasons why I have a hard time with names and initials. So that is something I would like to add to my repertoire. So thanks, John Edward, for that. His story of becoming a medium is pretty interesting because he was just working as a psychic. And of course, he gets thrust into mediumship kind of against his will. And it's like not what he wants to do. So I also felt connected to that because I was just trying to be an evidential medium. And I was being thrust to talk to all these other energies and entities and beings and whatnot. Not against my will because I was very open to it. But I struggled with it a lot because I didn't. Because I just thought I was just supposed to be an evidential medium. So anyway, this woo-woo book review turned into a lot about me, but it was interesting to read another medium's experiences and way that they work from a little bit of a different time period. You know, it's kind of old now, like almost 30 years old. I enjoyed reading it. John Edward, one last time, first edition copy from 1998, but it was a New York Times bestseller, see? It was a good read. And if you're into mediumship and spiritual connections, especially with loved ones, I would recommend this as a read. It was very interesting, enlightening, and not too difficult to read. Pretty short. Thanks for watching this woo-woo book review number 15. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, share, etc. And I'll see you later. Bye-bye.